Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning into the show. I hope you enjoy what happens here over the next wee while. To find out who our first guest is, let's go over to our MC for the evening, the beautiful Fred Cook.
Thank you, Tommy. Well, our first guest is Anne O'Connell and Nessa Hurley.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
You half look like twins.
Lol.
Are you related at all?
You'll have to find out. Yes.
Are you one of those separated at birth and then reunited in later years stories or something?
We'll wait and see.
Okay, go on. So
Don't jump the gun.
So who are you and what do you know?
So I'm Anne.
Yeah.
I live in County Limerick. About 8 years ago, through my business and just shared interests, Nessa and I became friends through social media on Instagram. And we've maintained a relationship over the past few years. We've met. And over the course of our friendship, we both found out about each other that we were both born in a mother and baby home in Besborough in Cork.
Wow, it's funny because you don't look old enough to be born.
That's what a lot of people say.
Really?
Yeah.
What year were you born?
So I'm 1984.
Okay.
I'm 81.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the story behind the home would have been what?
So we're both...
No, in terms of like so 81 and 84.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So who was being sent there in the early 80s? Like who's... Am I getting it wrong? Was this a place where unmarried...
So unmarried mums,
Pregnant mums.
you know, young girls who just found themselves in a situation where they were sent to these homes and, you know, it depended on how long they were there, but some were there for the duration of the whole pregnancy, some for just, you know, a couple of weeks. And they would have their baby and the babies would be adopted and the moms would go home back to their lives. Nobody would have known what they were doing.
Okay, so 81 and 84. Mm-hmm. And what else did you find out then?
We were both adopted, both by gorgeous families. I was adopted by my parents, Rona and Ted. I grew up as one of four, so I have two brothers and a sister. Gorgeous, idyllic upbringing. Always knew I was adopted, like from the get-go. I never didn't know, if you know what I mean. I was adopted.
Are they Indian or something? You've always had a sense of, I don't think...
Yeah, I don't belong here. No, because everyone always asks, when did you find out?
Yeah.
And I don't remember, I don't remember them telling me, so I must have been pretty young.
Okay.
And I just, it was kind of like my thing, I'd say to those people, I'm adopted, you know, as if, it was, a big deal. But my parents were super supportive of the fact that I was adopted and potentially I might want to one day meet, you know, birth family. But yeah, so it wasn't until I was had become a mom myself. I have three girls. It wasn't until I had my own kids that I kind of really started thinking about, God, who is this, you know, woman that gave me up? Selfishly, I probably didn't think of it before then because I kind of didn't really have to. I was happy out. I didn't need for anything. I was very, very happy in my own family. And then when my second daughter, Florence, was born in 2020, in the January following her birth, this report into an investigation into the mother and baby homes came out. Anne and I were both born in Besborough, which is in Cork. And I only read the Besborough part of the report. It's thousands of pages. And I was appalled, Tommy, appalled at the situation, the experiences that these women would have had. And as a mother, it just it cut deep into my heart. So
why were you appalled?
The treatment of them. So I was born in the 80s and it had definitely gotten better by the 80s. But it's the report basically says the good, bad and the ugly at these mother and baby homes. And as far as from reading the report, late into the 70s, mothers were still being treated appallingly, giving birth with no pain relief. I know that still happens, but they didn't even have an option. You know, being being put into corners, facing the wall to feed their babies, like just shamed.
Loveless.
Loveless, like they were just made
I don't know
to
why
feel.
they're called homes, because
Yeah.
there's absolutely nothing homely about
Yeah.
them. They were facilities, really.
Yeah.
You know.
I know with my own story that my birth mother was in a relationship. So, you know, she was probably thinking, oh, we're going to be together forever. We'll have her baby. But her parents sent her off to the mother and baby home.
How old was she?
She was about 21, which actually isn't that young. Like, you know, and she was just told, you're giving this baby up for adoption. Like, you don't have a choice. Which is, again, as a mother, is something I can't fathom.
I know my mum concealed the pregnancy till she was about 7 months, and when she couldn't hide it anymore, then she went about looking to go to the home.
Herself.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so funny because we think of these places as being from the 50s and the 60s.
No, so
But
recent.
80s is my teenage years, and you're thinking you're watching Top of the Pops and the Tube and Live Aid, and
Yeah.
it
And
doesn't
actually,
fit.
Bessborough was open until 99. I was doing my leaving cert that year. That's not long ago. It's such recent past, you know.
So after the birth of your second daughter, you decided to do some investigating.
Yeah. So I contacted the adoption services, and I never wanted to go about meeting my birth parents. What I really wanted to do is literally let her know that I was okay. You know, you just knew from reading the report that these women had to have felt guilt and like felt maybe a bit of shame. I wanted her to know I was absolutely fine. I'd, you know, grown up in a great family, and you know, if she was feeling any guilt, to let it go. Like, I was perfectly happy. And I was told when I contacted them that it would take at least 3 to 4 years for anything to be done, for a trace to even be started. And this was only in 2021, you know, so it was recent. And to go away and, you know, they'd be in touch. But they said in the meantime, I could go onto this thing called a contact preference register, which is basically put your name down if you would like anyone that could potentially contact you from your birth family to contact you. So I said, yeah, you know, put me down. And that was in January of 2021. And then it wasn't until like October 2022 that I got a call to say, bingo, we have matched you with someone in your family.
Who was it?
So I was, it was my sister, a sister who like lived in a different county to me. I was in Cork at the time. The sister was living in Limerick, and but I guess the weird thing is that Anne and I met like 8 years ago, so we knew each other well. We had a friendship. She had and had we'd met a few times. And we have very similar like interests. Like, I was on holidays in Portugal a few months before.
Don't say, and I was in holidays in Portugal as well.
But no, and like she had been there 2 weeks previous in the
the same
exact
hotel.
so she was texting me, telling me where to go to eat and whatnot. And then, so in October 2022, we both got a call to say that we'd be matched with the sister and would we be interested in meeting the sister. And I said, of course. Actually, I'm going to be honest. I did say, oh God, I don't know. Do I really want to drag, you know, something on me that potentially wouldn't be like a positive thing? And
Because it's a lot.
yeah,
it is a lot.
And then I said, go on, so. And then between the jigs and reels, like a week later, basically our social worker had met both me and my sister, and the social worker rang me to say, okay, so I need you to sit down.
Now, are you keeping each other informed during this of, I've been in contact with Bessborough,
Not at that point, no.
You
Not
hadn't,
at that
the
point.
friendship didn't explore that together?
No.
Okay.
And she's like, I'm here with your sister, Anne. And I was like, all right. And she's like, Anne O'Connell. And I was like, don't really know any Anne O'Connells. And she was like, does Pixie and John mean anything to you? That's Anne's business. And I was like, stop it. And like my husband Dennis was working downstairs and he just heard this like screaming upstairs, and I'd say he thought something had happened. And she's like, yeah, I'm here with Anne. And
Crazy.
she's your sister.
Just nuts. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, who are your parents, your biological parents?
So we don't know any information really about our biological father, but
Is it the same guy?
No.
no,
Okay.
no. I have actually met my birth mother. I met her during COVID about maybe 3 years ago, and it was short. It was nice. I like a bit different to Nessa. I started searching quite young. I hit 18 and I was like, that's it, I want to find out more. I was just intrigued with, I was like obsessed with, does anyone look like me? Because I look really nothing like any of my family, obviously. When I had my first daughter, I was 26 and the contact register had come out, and after having Sarah, I just felt this, it just propelled me into wanting to know more, and just that feeling I got when I held my daughter, it just made me really think about my birth mother and all that she had to go through in those circumstances.
Why do you have such sympathy for your mother?
You know, the 80s weren't that long ago, but actually it was such a different time. Like, a lot of these women didn't know how they got pregnant. There was no sex education. There was, no contraception.
That's hard to believe.
Yeah.
That they didn't know how they got pregnant.
But it's but it's true. It's true. Maybe they had an idea, but there was nobody to teach you. Like, it just happened.
There
They
was
found
no
themselves in
sex
this
education,
in
and
this
there was certainly
situation.
no contraception.
Yeah.
And actually, from the reports, it showed that like some of these girls didn't even know how this baby was going to come out. So they must have been absolutely terrified. And then you're brought to this home. I've visited it since, and it is bleak.
Yeah.
And you change your name because you fear of anyone from home finding out, or just the shame of you're with, I suppose, people you fear, really, the nuns and the priests and all this judgment on you.
Is your mother still alive?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how does she know that you're on the show?
No.
No, she doesn't. She actually only just found out a couple of months ago that we have found each other, because
That wasn't...
that was a surprise for everyone, social workers and everything. She hadn't disclosed that she had had 2 babies.
So what's
Yeah.
the story of, or what is the story of her 20s in that? Is she married now with a family?
No, she's not.
Is she
She's-
okay?
I hope so. Like I said, I met her and I spoke with her for about 2 hours. She's a nice woman. She seems just very quiet and I'd say very traumatized, actually. She mentioned quite a few times when we were speaking how awful it was. And
I think our story is lovely, and I hope now, and that's how all this came about, Tommy, is from me wanting to lessen the burden for her, and it was the exact same with
Same.
Anne. So I hope that now, her knowing that we are so happy, we're delighted with each other, like to have each other, that lessens her burden. I know, like, is it too late? Like, she's had a long life of carrying a burden, but hopefully now things are just, she can kind of breathe a little.
Why do you think that neither of you feel rejected by your mum?
I I don't know, I'd never have had that feeling,
No,
ever.
I haven't
Would you,
either.
when you both talk about having your own daughters and this kind of connection
Yeah.
and this refusal to let go, and you sometimes think about your mum and the ability to let go.
Yeah.
Course.
She was a single lady living with her mother and grandmother. Not ideal circumstances, I guess. I don't feel any bitterness to her because I guess if her circumstances weren't ideal, then are we not better off where we are
Yeah,
now?
totally.
I certainly feel like I'm better off where I am. I hit the jackpot with my family. I know that sounds cheesy, but I really did. And I've had such a lovely life. My only thing that bothers me is that we didn't know earlier about each other.
I just think how brave, like what a strong woman to not only go through that once, but to go back and face it, knowing, you know, what was going to be said or done, and to live all that again when, you know, I'm sure she had other options, but she decided for our sake to go there, go through all that,
really
go through the pain of it. And I just think what a fierce woman. If I could just take that from, a smidgen of that from her DNA and take a piece of that, and for my girls, I have 2 girls, for them to have even the smallest fraction of that, I would be so happy. I just think she's a warrior. All those women who went through what they went through were just incredible.
Resilience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It must have taken everything. And they're still living with it, you know.
If she was watching now, what would you say to her?
Just how amazing she was and is, and how, you know, grateful we are to be alive. And I know that sounds pretty dramatic, but, you know, we survived an unplanned teenage pregnancy. We survived birth in a mother and baby home where the mortality rate was 1 in 9 babies. And we survived, you know, we landed in the most gorgeous of families. Like, we were lucky. We were very lucky. So,
Very lucky.
you know, we would just say thank you. Like,
Yeah.
what a woman.
I do think of women in that generation who went through stuff like that, and the unfairness is too small a word, but the trauma of it and the burden that they had to carry in quiet. It's a bad past.
Yeah, it is.
And that trauma doesn't end with our mothers and like that generation who had the babies. Like it continues down along, and you know, I'm, you know, telling my kids about it, and it's just part of our story. But there's still so much that needs to happen to like rid the ghosts of this whole era and time, and there's a lot of stuff with tune babies and Besbur babies, and
What is it that needs to happen?
I think like people just need to start talking. There's so much. Obviously, laws have come in. Like everyone can get their information now, which is major. Like I think our generation are really lucky. Like I know with my friends and we talk about everything. We're so open, probably too open. We're oversharers.
Yeah, but isn't the dilemma is that you don't want to hurt the feelings of the previous generation if they're still alive, and you don't want to expose their stories unless they want those stories exposed themselves.
100%.
Absolutely,
But
yeah.
like I guess, you know, by us talking, it might help those people
sure.
you know, not okay. Maybe I don't have to feel this shame, because so many of these women take it to the grave. You know, they'll never. I'm sure there's women amongst us, like you know, of my parents' generation, that have stories that we're not aware of. But I do think the more you talk about it, the more less shame people will feel, and they might start opening up.
Wow, isn't it funny that I thought your sisters...
I know.
That's a bit weird.
You ruined it for us, Tommy. That's so interesting because everyone, when I first showed my mom like a photo of Anne, when I first found out, she said, "Yeah, you look alike. There's similarities." But when we sat like this having coffee with my mom, and Mom said, "Oh God, this is weird.
Freaky.
This is weird." And it was the same with my husband,
Yeah,
Dennis,
yeah,
and Anne's husband, Jer.
Yeah.
It was when we were with them, they were like, "This is weird."
So weird,
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous story, and thanks for coming on to the show.
Thank you.
Very welcome. Thanks, Tommy.
Welcome back to the second half, everybody. Freddie, who's next?
Tommy, our next guest is Dan Tawney.
Tommy, how are
Dan, how are you?
you? What a
Very
pleasure
nice
to meet you. Very good to meet you.
Is all the information on the jacket?
There's a lot of information, but I have one piece of information. I found out I have 2 birth sisters. It's unbelievable. What a story.
Do you work at NASA?
I don't anymore, but I used to. I have a 16-year career at NASA, flying in space.
Wow. Wow, how'd you get into that?
Oddly, you apply. You send in an application.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Becoming an astronaut is, in ways, a lot easier than most people think. It's a job, which is something that a lot of people don't initially realize. I just got very lucky.
Why did you want to become an astronaut?
Well, I think there are 2 types of people, right? People that will do anything to fly in space and other people that will do anything to not fly in space. I've always been somebody who enjoys machinery and things that go fast and things that go high and the excitement of the unknown, love roller coasters and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and so, my goodness, who doesn't want to be an astronaut in my mind?
What's the training?
So I can talk about, and it's similar now, but when I joined in '96, what is that, 25 years ago, you get picked to be an astronaut, and then you go through about 1.5 years of basic astronaut training, and that's how does NASA work, how does a space shuttle work, how does a space station work, all the things, the basics of flying in space, how does a spacesuit work.
So it's all, at that stage, it's all theory?
It's theory, but it's all in practice. Simulations, you get in the simulator, you do, we fly real airplanes because getting into the headspace of flying a high-performance aircraft is very similar to flying in space, so we fly high-performance airplanes also.
Is that terrifying, flying planes, high-performance planes?
Depends on how you define terrifying, but yeah, I mean, it's the beauty of flying these high-speed aircraft, they're called T-38s, is that you're going at, almost Mach 1. There are a couple switches that you could throw.
That sounds like a razor to me, so I don't know.
600-700 miles an hour, right?
Okay.
There are switches that you could flick on the control panel that could kill you. So, of course, you have to coordinate everything you do. You have to understand what the airplane's doing. You have to understand what the other pilot is doing. You have to understand what air traffic control wants you to do. Those are all skills we use in space. We need to know what our crewmates are doing. We need to understand the vehicle that we're flying. We have to understand what the ground wants us to do. And so, in a very high-stress, highly dangerous environment.
It's kind of Top Gun stuff, is it?
It is. I mean, we don't fly those kind of planes. We fly the planes that they trained to get into the F-18s. But it's such good training for going to space.
How dangerous is it flying into space?
It's quite dangerous, of course. We're familiar with all the famous accidents that have killed crewmates and other people. There's danger accelerating from 0 miles an hour to 17,000 miles an hour because,
What?
well, when we're orbiting the Earth, we're going 17,500 miles an hour. So to get that velocity, the rocket has to be firing, the spacecraft has to be withstanding all these loads. So that's very dangerous, of course.
And is it always that thing of you're facing the sky?
Yeah, we launch on our backs because the acceleration vector, as you're being pushed into space, if you were sitting like this, blood would be being forced out of your head, and that could be dangerous. You could pass out. So what we do is we launch on our back so that the acceleration force is through our chest, which is easier for your heart to circulate the blood while you're going through those.
Do you ever think that people don't belong in space?
I guess there are people. I don't know who those are, but yeah, I certainly think that there are people that don't want to. As I said, there's a whole.
No, but as a species, we don't belong in space.
People as a species. Well, I don't know. You know, part of being an astronaut is exploring what it's like. We are trying to push the boundary of what we know and our expertise of the boundaries of where we might exist. And so it's a real honor to be part of that team to figure out.
See, my suspicion would be we know there's nowhere like where we're living at the moment, and that the thrill of going to space doesn't really need a mission statement other than it's just really exciting.
It absolutely is, and I know that there are scientific objectives. I know that there's sort of humanitarian objectives, but boy, it's the thrill. It's the thrill of going so fast. But then, gosh, seeing our planet from 400 kilometers up and seeing a sunrise and a sunset every 45 minutes, it's just a fantastic experience that I'm so proud and honored to be given the privilege to have.
Yeah. What effect did seeing the world like that have on you, do you think?
So, I came back. A lot of people wanted to know if there's spiritual or other kind of, big philosophical changes in me. In my case, no, I didn't have any of those. But I lived in space for 4 months, on the space station for 4 months. And it's great to go live on the space station because now you're a resident. And so we have a 5.5-day work week, and then we have Sundays generally off. And so it's a free day.
Yeah, but a day off, it does like a day off from prison.
Well,
it's like
it's all your perspective, but it's a day off to, an unscheduled day to go look at the window and plan and just sort of absorb. You have nothing on your timeline, so you can sort of absorb the experience. And I spend a lot of time looking out the window, taking pictures of our beautiful Earth.
So what happens to your body when you're in space for that length of time?
That's what we're trying to find out. That's one of the objectives of the International Space Station, is to figure out long-duration space and its effect on the body. And we're finding some things that we knew, and we're finding some things we didn't know. So one of the things we know is that it's really easy on your body to be in space without gravitational forces. So now your heart doesn't have to move blood from your toes to your head, and your muscles don't have to hold you up 24 hours a day. And so if you just did nothing, your body could get used to this really easy life. Well, it's tough if you want to go back to Earth. And so we do a lot of exercise to keep our muscles in tone, keep our heart rate going.
Psychologically, what do you think happens to you?
Well, for right now, going to the International Space Station, we're only 250 miles, 400 kilometers away from Earth. We talk to our families every day through a satellite hookup. Psychologically, I would say it's like a long business trip. I think there was no sense of being that separate. Now, so I think right now for International Space Station, and I don't think there's anything magic about weightlessness that changes your psychology. When we go to Mars, and we'll go to Mars, but when we go to Mars, we're going to be, millions of miles away. It'll take 8 minutes to get a message from planet the Mars, or 15 minutes from at some points back to Earth. If you're standing on Mars, if you look up in the sky, it's going to be hard to find the Earth. The Earth is going to be a tiny dot. And so I think that's going to be a real psychological issue that we're going to have to think about. We're going to have to address that when we get ready to go to Mars. But for right now, my goodness, I look down and I get to see Chicago, where I grew up, or Ireland, where I have family, and I feel a real connection. And so,
for all the marijuana smokers at home,
yes,
do you think people actually landed on the moon?
For all of them, for half the states where it's now legal in America. I have the pleasure of meeting, several of the people that made it to the moon, and
so they say.
I trust their stories. Yeah. So yeah, and again, not only the people that went and worked on the moon, but the people that got him there and the rockets. And so, yeah, I'm a true believer. So call me what you will, but I'm a true believer.
What about all the stuff at the moment, especially prevalent in the States, about unidentified flying objects and stuff?
Yeah, that's interesting, of course. I know nothing about that. But what kids especially, ask me, about UFOs and aliens. And so I tell them, I'm going to surprise them. I'm convinced there's aliens out there. I'm convinced of it. And I'm convinced because the numbers dictate it. The number of stars in the galaxies and the number of galaxies in the universe. The numbers are so huge, it's preposterous to think that we are the only place in the entire universe where life has been developed, intelligent life. And but those same numbers mandate that we're never going to interact with them. It's a huge ocean, it's a piece of sand. So do they come down and come to County Kerry and take people and
interrogate farmers?
Interrogate them? Yeah, right. I'm highly suspicious of that from a statistics point of view. So
Not that Kerry isn't beautiful, and why wouldn't an alien come to Kerry if they visited?
I'm a big fan of Kerry. I spend a lot of time golfing out there. So,
what's your connection to Ireland?
Well, Tommy, you can imagine that I really sort of thrive having my life on this razor edge of the satisfaction of mission success and the danger of sheer catastrophe. And so I decided to do what few people have ever done, and I married a Cork woman. So I enjoy that. I enjoy living on that razor's edge. And so
She'll sort you out.
Exactly right. Yeah, flying in space is a piece of cake.
Oh, why don't you just fuck off to space,
Hey, I should apply for that. So.
Oh, don't tell me you met her and then decided to become an astronaut. Did you?
No, I was an astronaut before we met, but so of course I married this wonderful woman and was embraced by her family down in Cork, and so and as I flew and I got to celebrate. There's a place in Cork called the Blackrock Castle Observatory, and I got to do some link-ups with them and help spread the word, and I participate. Ireland has a Space Week every week, and I try to hook up with schools and talk about space. I would love to see Ireland really explode.
What does that mean, talk about space? I don't understand that.
Well, first, people love to talk about space, so that's a thrill to me. What I mean is, I had the pleasure of going to UCD yesterday because I had heard that UCD, the students, built the very first satellite for Ireland. So Ireland is now in space because of this team of students at UCD that built this little satellite that you can, that just fit in your hand, and they talk to it twice a day, and that's really inspirational. And I would love for that to be the first of many satellites that Ireland puts up, and I can't wait to see the first Irish-born astronaut to go into space.
Have you become more kind of ecologically aware, do you think?
Yes. When you look out at the Earth, again, from a couple 400 kilometers, you see our beautiful marble, right, our beautiful Earth, and then you see a thin little layer, probably feels like an inch high, but of course, but that's our atmosphere. That protects us. That's what keeps us alive. That's what keeps us from overheating.
Wow.
That's what keeps radiation from killing all of us. So I'm acutely aware of how fragile an ecosystem we are, and so I have a little bit of a paternal instinct for our planet in my heart, and so I am aware of that.
What's your family history in terms of moving to the States? When did your great-grandparents, where would they have been from? Or?
So all four of my grandparents were born in Japan, and turn of the century, from 18th and 19th century, they, not knowing each other, moved to Japan because they had read in the newspaper that the streets were lined with gold.
Moved from Japan?
From Japan,
yep.
Through the West Coast, down and settled in California. Of course, the streets were not lined with gold, and my mother's parents were very poor strawberry farmers. My father's parents lived in Japantown in San Francisco, struggling. They raised my parents, and they were married in California, and soon after they were married, the war broke out.
Yeah.
And so they were a new family with a 3-week-old son, my oldest brother, and they were forcibly removed from their homes. First lived in horse stables at a local racetrack in San Francisco, near San Francisco, while the government was building these camps to put all the people with Japanese ancestry in. So, if you don't know, in Ireland, and many people in America don't know this, after the war, the president decided that anybody on the West Coast that has any Japanese ancestry has to be forcibly removed from the West Coast out of espionage fears. So my family spent 2.5 years living in the desert in Utah and behind barbed wire, treated as prisoners. And then only after my father got a job, a sympathetic business contact, got him a job in St. Louis, and they moved to St. Louis. So my family history is a little checkered in that way. My family's history and relationship with the government is a little checkered in that way. Part of my story, part of what I'm so proud of, is, one generation later, after that happened to my family, that same government, chose me to represent them in space. And so I'm so honored and proud, both for my family and my Japanese American ancestry, the whole Japanese American community, but also for my government to look at that terrible time in our history, apologize for it, officially apologize for it, and recognize the mistake that was made. And now I believe it's our job as Japanese Americans that have resulted in that to make sure that that doesn't happen again to some other foreign element that seems so different, that they believe that, when you hear say, well, they just don't believe what we believe. That's what they used to say about us, people with Japanese ancestry. And so I'm so proud that was my path and has been my path to where I get to sit now. And my Japanese American, that whole Japanese American community has done very well, and I'm such a proud member of that.
Wow. It's a great story, Dan. Thank you very much for coming on to the show.
My pleasure. Very nice to meet you.
Pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure's mine.
Welcome back to the third half, everybody. Freddie, who's next?
Tommy, our next guest is Mr. Paul Lynch.
Lovely. How's the man?
How are you?
Good now.
See you.
Great to see you, fella. How have things changed over the past wee while?
How have they changed? Yeah, there's life before you win the Booker Prize, and then there's life after.
Yeah.
I mean, it changes in terms of interviews for a start.
Yeah.
They warn you. They say, now, if you win this, they say this to all the shortlisted writers, if you win this, you will spend 12, 13, 14 hours tomorrow doing interviews.
Do you have to?
Julian Barnes said no.
Yeah.
I think it would be a bit churlish to say no. I think it would be a bit...
Bob Dylan didn't even
He
turn up
didn't
for the
turn up
Nobel.
for the Nobel. Yeah, I love that. I think my publisher would be a little bit upset. Plus, also, I'm not Bob Dylan. I don't have the position to say no in terms of like recognition. So you take it when it comes.
And what's the cash whack?
I don't know, actually.
Oh, really?
I mean, you get 50,000 when you win.
Okay.
And then you get a lot more book sales.
And was the 50 grand... I just want to try to get an idea of what the life might have been like.
This is so Irish, isn't it? What? Tell me about the cash.
Did you put an extension on that?
Yeah.
So was that... So there's that, and then there's they say maybe somewhere between $250,000 and $1 million that could be earned then in book sales. Is that what happens? Is it that much of a smack?
Well, what I do know is that you get a couple 100,000 books put into print.
Okay.
And that's an extraordinary number for a writer like me. I always think of myself as, I don't play down the centre of the court. I play I'm playing down the side of the court. You know, I was never writing fiction that was designed for the spotlight, for the mainstream. I've
Bạn bè mà tình dối bất chấp hết tất cả, nó tự xoay chân và bụng lại về người yêu, bỏ nó ra đi mà ta tự hủy hoại xác này, phải là do tình.
Always been trying to push it to the edges. So to find suddenly that the light suddenly where I am has been very strange.
When you say push it to the edges, what do you mean?
I mean writing fiction that's a little bit dangerous, that's pushing the form, that's trying to get at ideas that might not necessarily be designed generally for mass consumption. You know, not writing fiction that's meant to console people, not writing fiction that's meant to leave you at the end feeling, well, wasn't that lovely? Wasn't that a great lark?
Yeah.
You know, it's fiction that's asking serious questions, and writers like that generally have a quieter time of it.
So was the struggle then to articulate that and make a living?
Yeah, it's been a struggle, of course. Yeah, you know, I was telling a lady backstage that I think my second book, The Black Snow, I think it sold 400 copies in hardcover in Ireland. Now I could be wrong, so somewhere around that number. It was very little, more or less. But that's what you sign up for. You don't sign up for recognition. You don't sign up to be stopped in the street. When you sign up to be a writer, you know, it's book famous is even to be book famous is not truly famous, I think.
Why did you become a writer?
It's never a choice. I think that I think writing it has to be vocational. It has to be a sense that you tried not writing for a long time.
So it's kind of compulsive.
Yeah, you tried not writing and it didn't work out for you. And when you have to do it, you build your life around the work. You make decisions that are decisions whereby the writing has to be the thing that you do primarily, to give the best of yourself to the work.
How does the writing balance you? So if we just say park the style and the ambitions, how does the act of that solitude shape you for the rest of your life?
I love that question. You're somebody who I think will know about this, that when you are still, when you are present with yourself and you're creating material, you're actually tuning in to a part of your mind that's not available to you ordinarily when you're caught up in the noise of life, the tumult, the chaos, just the general mayhem of the world that we're in now, that when you write or you do any artistic activity, or when you meditate, you're accessing a part of your mind that is higher than what you normally are. And so when you're an artist, you cultivate that space. And what goes on there is hard to see because a lot of it comes from the subconscious. So it's like there's a door in the dark, a door into the dark, and you're trying to keep that door open. You can't see the door, but you know it's there, and you know that if you're present every day and you turn up, that door might open for you. And when it does open, and you write, you disappear into the work, and you access a version of yourself that's enlightened almost. It's a presence. It's beautiful, and when you lose that access, when you get writer's block, for example, it can be a real torment, which is why writers go nuts when they're blocked, because their best self is gone.
And typically, is a book a 2 or 3 year gestation? Is that the length of time it takes?
Yeah, I mean, Prophet's Song took me just under 4 years. And it's a crazy undertaking when you think about it. You're saying to yourself, okay, I'm full of this feeling for a novel. I don't even fully know what it is. I don't sort of plan them out. I don't rationalize what the novel is going to be. I just have this feeling. But, you know, you sit down and you say, okay, this is an act of faith. I'm taking blind trust in myself that I can do this. So then you start writing. And I always look at to try to get to 20,000 words. When I get to 20,000 words, okay, I think I'm safe here. I think I have a novel. I'm safe enough now that I can push out for the next couple of years with it. And at that point, you're building your life around the work. That's, you know, I'm a normal person, you know. I shop in the supermarkets, you know. I've got kids at school. I lead a normal life, but the writing is what I do when I'm working. And so...
for people who haven't come across it, could you tell us about the idea for it?
Yeah, I mean, the story is about Eilish Stack, who is a woman in her 40s, lives in Dublin, married to Larry, who works at the Trade Teachers Union of Ireland. And they've got 3 teenagers and an infant. And there's a knock on the door. And it's the GNSB, the Garda National Services Bureau, who are Ireland's newly formed secret police. And they want to speak with Larry.
Okay.
But what happens is that, or the setting is that there's a populist government has been elected. And the democratic norms that we take for granted in liberal democracies are beginning to slide.
For us, for here.
For here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is a container that speaks to multiple political realities all at once. So many different events around the world are also reflected in the book. So I met, when I was in London a few weeks ago, I met a lady from Ukraine. She said, you've told her story. And I couldn't believe this. And then the next night I met a lady from Palestine, and she said the same thing to me. And I thought, isn't this incredible? I'm just this guy writing in Dublin in a room, writing this story from my mind, but somehow it's capturing an essence, a sort of an almost mythic essence of these things that recur throughout time.
Yeah. What's your gift, do you think?
Oh dear, I'm decent on the guitar.
That's just a stalling tactic now.
Yeah. You know, I think that this part of me that I disappear into, that these stories emerge from there, it took me by surprise. I didn't think that I could do this. I didn't start writing till I was 30. I didn't even trust that I could write. And I was in a taxi on the island of Lipari in Sicily, going up a hill to a hotel. And I was kind of looking back over the Tyrolean Sea. And I had this epiphany in that moment that the life that I was leading at that point was actually a lie, and that I was meant to be writing fiction. And that I was to give myself permission from that day on, and that meant permission to fail. And to fail better, as Beckett says. And the interesting thing about that is I'd never written fiction before. I hadn't written a word of fiction. So how did I know that I was full of stories? How did I know where this, you know, that it seems bizarre almost that, you know, and 16 years later, here I am talking about my 5th book. It's not that you say my gift. I don't own that. I don't feel that I own it. I think that it's something that I have to protect. It's something that I have to value. It's something that I respect enormously. I fear that I could lose it. I fear that the sort of the madness of winning the Booker Prize might interfere with it. But you know, if it does interfere, it'll be waiting for me when I finally get back down to normal writing time. But I don't own it. It's not my gift.
How do you protect the gift? So the nature of a gift is that it was given to you and you've done nothing to deserve it, but you have it.
Yeah, you have it. Yeah.
So how do you protect it?
I protect it by trying to lead a quiet life. Flaubert once said, you know, his famous injunction to be sort of, you know, be regular and ordinary in your life so that you can be dangerous on the page.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that this idea that artists are meant to be hellraisers and boozers, I think that's a very dangerous idea. I think it's nonsense. But the other thing as well is you need to be receptive. You need to, you know, you need to do nothing.
Yeah.
You actually need at times to do nothing, to be sitting around in your dressing gown, and it looks like you're doing. It looks like you're just sitting on your arse. What's he up to now? There he goes again, his dressing gown. You know, there he's not even reading today. He's just literally gazing out the window. But that's when the magic comes. You know, when you make yourself available to that. Also, going for walks.
Yeah.
Nietzsche talked about that. You know, that going for walks is the only truly creative space. And sometimes I'm sitting in the house and I'm driving myself nuts, and the voice just goes, "Go for a bloody walk, will you?" You know, and you go for the walk, and it all opens up again.
So how do you marry the thing of being a dad and the thing of being a writer, in terms of obligations and time and attention? How do you do that?
I think it's about presence. I think that when I'm with the kids, I'm with the kids. You know, I'm dad and I'm doing house stuff and I'm cooking and I'm just doing dad things. And when I'm in the artistic space, I'm not doing anything else but that. And so being present with each particular space is how I navigate it. I also am a meditator, and I've been meditating a long time. And I find that is a very important tool in keeping me grounded, keeping me in tune with what I hope is the best part of myself. And we always lose that part of ourselves, even though, you know, I may meditate for half hour a day or an hour a day. I still lose that part of myself because life just comes at you. It just bombards you. It hits you on the back of the head, and you don't know where you are. But that's my way of holding on to something.
Talk me through the time frame of the day. What time do you get up and start working and meditating? When are you with the kids? And
it depends on the days that I have the kids, because I'm a separated dad.
Okay.
So if it's a day where I have the kids, then I'm up at 7 with the kids.
Okay.
And it's the school run, or it's a Saturday and a Sunday. Yeah.
How did you? I think we came from the first generation to get divorced or separated.
Yeah.
And I found that I was unprepared for. So no one in my father's generation
Yeah.
that I was close to had navigated that territory.
Yeah.
So I found when I was going through it that it was entirely strange.
Yeah.
Was this without
Yeah.
getting into specifics of anything?
Yeah. No,
You're talking about that territory.
I think you're completely right here. There are no models for this for a lot of us.
For Irishmen, yeah.
Yeah, there are no models. I mean, I think the statistic is actually only 1 in 10 marriages in Ireland fall apart, and that's a very low number, and it says a lot about how we are as a society. But it's changing. It's definitely changing post-COVID. COVID seems to have been a wrecking ball for many couples, but navigating it is a challenge, because I think that when you decide to get married, that is a sacred space. I think you're making a sacred decision. I'm not a religious person, but you're making a decision to do something that operates at the level of the sacred. So when that ends, it has a very profound impact on you, all the way down to the core of you, to the part of you that truly defines yourself within the context of your life. It's one of the most important decisions you'll make.
Especially like you've stood up in front of
and you've made vows.
everybody you know and said, I'm doing this.
Yeah, and so, you know, I think the path through it is different for everybody, and I don't think it's a journey that, you know, you will be beset by demons and you will be beset by monsters but
Of shame and guilt.
you'll be haunted.
Yeah.
And you should get through it. You know, there's what's the nursery rhyme? You can't go over it, you can't go under it. You've got to go through it.
Yeah. Is winning the Booker good crack?
It is good crack. It's weird crack. It's different crack. It's not. I mean, I never thought I'd win the damn thing. Shall we say? Do you know, like, you sit down to write a book and no one asks you to write it, and the last thing you think is going to happen is this book's actually going to win the Booker Prize. It is an unimaginable thing.
Yeah. Wow. Enjoy.
I'll try to.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome The Last Dinner Party performing Nothing Matters from their debut album, Prelude to Ecstasy.
If you were affected by any of the issues in the Tommy Tiernan show tonight, please log on to rte.ie/support, where you'll find helpline information available all the time. Details will be on screen shortly.
扉を開いて進もう